Greetings, tribe. Islam, Shalom, Hotep, Aloha, Ola. This is your brother Zach Bay, Indigenous American Moor, coming to you live and in full effect. I'd like to thank you for rocking with me and joining me again. Please like, share, subscribe, or dislike, comment, just interact with the content. I'm going to continue where we left off on the last video. Genocide. What does a paper genocide look like? Ghettos. Black status. What does it really mean? On later video, I want to go into this last section on the black status in a little bit more detail. But let's continue. In the last video, I went over how early U.S. census takers had total discretion on how indigenous natives were viewed on the U.S. Census. Starting as Indians, not taxed, and then changing to either a free person of color on the census or a free white person on the census, and other labels they also used. I want you to note that neither category denotes any tribal membership or affiliation. In many court cases and township hearings, judges or counsels will ask neighbors, like in surrounding houses and on surrounding properties, if they knew the native tribal status of a member whose case happened to be being heard at that time. They would ask the neighbors whether or not they knew if said person was an Indian or not. Oftentimes these neighbors were either too afraid to go against the social climate and just stay silent in those proceedings, or oftentimes they were paid to say the contrary, that they had no knowledge whatsoever of said tribal members' native status at all. So they could easily be labeled as black, or in some cases they might even be awarded a white status. We can go into that a little bit more detail later. Alright, keep moving along here. In a said manner, entire tribes have been declared extinct in the court of so-called law. This fact can be looked up very easily. You know, we all have access to the internet. You could just look this up. It's not hard to find. Indigenous Americans have been changed in modern days to white or black, and many laws have been passed over the generations outlawing indigenous natives from self-identifying as such. Okay? I want you guys to look up the paper titled "Making Indians White: The Judicial Abolition of Native Slavery in Revolutionary Virginia and Its Racial Legacy." And also I want you to look up the Robin v. Hardaway case, 1771. The case is very important. George Mason was a part of that case. All right. I want you to note that the black and white status steals and hides native heritage and lineage on paper. That's exactly what I mean by paper genocide. Intentionally written out of history. For what? For land ownership? Disregarding treaties? For resources? That's what it seems like to me. All right, I just want to read a little bit from the document that I have for you. It's the House Joint Resolution number 3. I mentioned this on another video, but I actually want to read a small section for you guys this evening, okay? Quote, whereas Native people and non-Native settlers engage in numerous armed conflicts, whereas the United States government violated many of the treaties ratified by Congress and other diplomatic agreements with Indian tribes, whereas this nation should address the broken treaties and many of the more ill-conceived federal policies that followed, such as extermination, termination, forced removal, and relocation, outlawing traditional religions, and the destruction of sacred places. Whereas the United States forced Indian tribes and their citizens to move away from their traditional homelands onto federally established and controlled reservations in accordance with such acts as the Indian Removal Act of 1830. Whereas many Native peoples suffered and perished during the execution of the official United States government policy of forced removal, including the infamous Trail of Tears, the Long Walk, and bloody armed confrontations and massacres, such as the Sand Creek Massacre in 1864 and the Wounded Knee Massacre of 1890, and numerous Indian reservations. Whereas the United States government condemned the traditions and beliefs and customs of Native peoples and endeavored to assimilate them by such policies as the redistribution of land under the General Allotment Act of 1887 and the forcibly removing Native children from their families to faraway boarding schools where their Native practices and language were degraded and forbidden. Whereas officials of the United States government and private United States citizens harm Native peoples by unlawful acquisition and recognized tribal lands, the theft of resources from such territories, and the mismanagement of tribal trusts. Whereas the policies of the United States government toward Indian tribes and breaking the covenant with Indian tribes have contributed to several social ills and economic troubles in many Native communities today. End quote. I want you guys to think about all that information I just read and apply that to the plight of the so-called black people of today's age. Reservations, forced relocation, forced removal. Come on, doesn't all this sounds eerily similar to the so-called ghettos and hoods that so-called black people or people of color are forced to live in this day and age? Such practices as redlining. Come on, people, connect the dots. All right. I just want to let you know that such information has been guarded and has been a secret for fraternities and secret societies, Masonic secrets, for generations. This is a big secret, but me, myself, I'm not sworn to such secrecy. You'll be able to find the names of these documents in the details of the video. I want you to like, share, subscribe, spread the information. I just want to end this segment with a quote. You've heard it before, one of my favorite quotes. A man knows not by being told. So feathers up, tribe. Shalom. Peace.